All right. Hello, everyone. This is Kayla Kumar. I'm running for Santa Cruz City Council in the upcoming November election. I'm here with my friend Ella for this edition of Coffee with Kayla. And you know what? We're actually doing this in the evening, and so I'm totally outing myself to the public that I am still drinking coffee at this late hour. Ella?
I'm only having a LaCroix.
So much more reasonable. Yeah. Anyway, thank you so much for being here with us today. For everybody that's tuning in, Coffee with Kayla is a conversation that I have with people who are working out in the community directly with issues that are super important to us here. Ella is a powerhouse in many ways. We can talk about food justice if we want to. We can talk about the way that homelessness is situated here in Santa Cruz and solutions to it, amongst other things. But today I thought what we would do is kind of zoom into homelessness and how that operates here, and talk about some solutions that are ahead of us, that are possible, that are compassionate. And that is, of course, something that really is compelling and necessary for this campaign. So what we'll do is I'll start and I'll ask Ella the question, and then she'll ask me one, and it will give you a sense of how we both relate to these issues. And honestly, Ella, I just kind of want to open it up. I mean, what is your understanding as someone who's worked in the field of the homelessness situation here in Santa Cruz today? And what are some things that you've seen that have, quote unquote, worked? I don't necessarily like to use that term, but promising ways forward that you want to share with folks.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Kayla. So my name's Ella. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm so excited to talk to you. So I work in a farm, like a traditional employment program on the context of an organic farm. And what we do is work to provide some stability for folks experiencing homelessness. Really, one thing that I've learned, and it's so appropriate now and just in the recent couple of months, is that homelessness can really happen to anyone, and almost anyone is prone to it. I mean, we just saw a massive housing evacuation crisis here in Santa Cruz, and so many folks got to have a little taste or experience or something of that housing instability and what might happen if a disaster occurs. Mm-hmm. In this case, it was fire, and some folks had to evacuate their homes and kind of be in survival mode for a little while and think about, what resources do I have? What resources are available to me, and what is it? How do I find some safety right now? And so I think that what I've really learned is that everybody needs that, and everyone who is experiencing homelessness has dealt with some sort of crisis, some sort of issue that has put their housing stability in jeopardy. So, there are a lot of different reasons, and you hope that each one of those reasons can be met with what each one of those reasons has a need, and behind that need, you hope that it can be met, right? So some folks, when they were evacuating from the fires, they just needed a place to stay. Some folks needed clothing. Some folks needed probably and will need some counseling services to help, with the mental trauma and the emotional anguish that someone needs. So you just hope that where there's a need, that can be met somewhere, and from the community, and from a community standpoint. So yeah, and folks really want stability and want survival. Right. I think that's what I've learned a lot, as well as that given the opportunity and given a possibility that you can move out of homelessness, you will take it.
Oh yeah. That's, and I'm so moved that you brought that up, because I'm one of those people. I was homeless as a young person. I left home at about 15. And I really, I appreciate you bringing up, there's definitely huge crises, right, that can result in people experiencing homelessness. For me, it was, just an unsafe environment. and it was actually safer to be housing unstable for me, you know what I mean? And so that really has shaped the way that I understand this issue, like just how you're talking about is it's nuanced. And I also don't think there's a form of homelessness, there's like a supremacy there either. Do you know what I mean? It's just like what's really important is understanding that it's not going to be a one size fits all solution, right? You know, me and my endeavor, I'm focused on solution that involves understanding the problem. Like a lot of it is understanding like what is the problem and knowing that it's so nuanced and really humanizing it, right? You know, as someone who's experienced it, I had a great GPA. I was on all, you know, the sports teams. I was in the clubs. You know, I did everything I was supposed to, but still, you know, I experienced that, and I understand just how difficult that hand is. It's such a hard hand to get out of, and it's not based on morals or merits or, you know, really so much of it seems so out of our control, right? So much of it is so out of our control. And so it's those moments, that's life, that's human life. So
Yeah.
much of it's out of our control. And those are the moments, like you're saying, I resonate with that, where that extra community layer of support needs to be layered onto our people. I'm so glad you brought that up. It's really important.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it can be any reason that that you're experiencing homelessness. It can be really just anything that can happen. And you can have had a job, you know, you can have had a job, you can have had stable housing, and things come up, like a medical bill, or,
Right.
you know, or even an experience with, you know, a mental health crisis or a substance misuse crisis. Those happen to a lot of folks, housed and unhoused. And one thing can lead to another, and you can lose your housing, or, you know, leaving like an incarceration experience. It's really hard to get back on your feet again. And there are so many reasons, and we all just hope that if we were ever in that situation, that there would be a community to support us in what we're going through.
Right. Right. Yeah. And I think, I mean, I know your work is, you know, just folks working on the ground with that solution orientation and big heartedness that I see in you and in other people who are working in those fields. Is there anything, I don't know, anything specific you want to pull out for folks of like, if, you know, I were to ask you, like, what are some solutions? Like, what are things, are you a housing first person? Are you, you know, like, what are some of your thoughts there?
A housing first person. I don't know. I don't know if I identify. I don't know. Yeah. I mean,
It's a big,
I mean, I, if I'm missing a meaning here, then let me know. But I think that, yeah, having some sort of housing stability first can lead you towards staying out of homelessness. So
right.
staying out of the experience of homelessness. So, you know, you need to start somewhere. And so what we do is try to provide at least a community experience.
Mm,
And so that folks have, you know, what's tough with joblessness and homelessness at the same time is that you can't get a job without an address,
right.
and you can't get an address without a job, right? So it's like
Right.
a cycle. Um, so I don't know what a housing first person is, but I would identify that way.
It's
Sure.
a weird way to put it. I'll tell you that. Housing first is a model of,
Okay. Yeah.
it's an approach that you know, I pulled it out like that because I describe myself as a housing first candidate, meaning I think we need really low barriers to supportive housing options here locally. And you know, also the three P's, where people, some barriers are folks,
Partners,
pets.
possessions, pets.
Yes, that's it. Partners, possessions, pets. And you know, really the again, this is about humanizing these issues. It is about getting shelter, but it's also about getting shelter that meets right, we're just talking about this constellation of needs and situations, and why can't we be open to the idea of someone who's experiencing homeless also bringing their pet. Like, what's the social harm there if we were to remove that barrier and in order to get people housed? So it's a model that I subscribe to, generally speaking. And
well, I
course,
love
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I
Right.
love that.
I know I mean, it's almost, it feels at times for me a little bit silly, because it's like, well, if we want to like really take a big swing at homelessness and its prevalence here, we should house people. And I almost feel like I'm being cute or something. you
Yeah,
know?
no, I mean, it's essential, right? And
Right.
like, it's one of the essential needs is yeah, we need food, water, and shelter. And that it's so difficult to obtain is really heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And when you think about, if you yourself were ever to be in that situation, wouldn't you want to, yeah, provide for someone else in that situation?
Yeah.
Wouldn't you make sure, to be without your partner or to be without any possessions is just, and your pets, like, so again, so many people just got a taste of what that might be like. And
Mm-hmm.
or the thought, at least, of what would happen if you lost everything. And yeah, if
Yeah.
yeah, so I love I love the housing first method of model.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's promising, but there's still some barriers that are even there right here in Santa Cruz. And I wonder, that's pretty much, I guess my questions to you. Do you have any questions for me about I don't know, the campaign or?
Yeah, so I guess one of the things that I see, so we host people to the farm, and they're outside, and they're working in a community, and they're doing all these things, and still there have folks don't have a hard time parking, like finding
Mm-hmm.
parking. And then you're dealing with tickets, and then you're dealing with more money, and then you're dealing with, so there are these cycles and these trauma loops that happen within
Uh-huh.
the cycle of homelessness. And so, yeah, I'm just curious about what are your what are your thoughts on, like,
Yeah.
on how to create some stability for folks, and as far as like where they can sleep or where they can park, so that they can at least have a little more spaciousness in their lives, to imagine that they can have more, like, even greater, like, stability begets stability, right?
That's right.
So the more and more confidence that you have, and so if you know that where you're going to park isn't going to be messed with, then at least that you can go to work that day, or you can go, and having a little bit of stability can help you get more stability. So I think
Right.
it builds on itself. And often what we've seen in certain systems is punishing people who are experiencing trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Having a trauma informed approach really just keeps them in a negative cycle. So
Right.
so how do you imagine, what's your vision for like a higher cycle, like a
Yeah. I like
higher.
that. I like that framing of it. There's so much there. Okay. So the first thing I have to share when I get this question is that, um, pardon, it is really hard for me to very like calmly and kind of like wonk out policy wise on people being able to sleep in their cars. Like, I don't want that for anybody,
Yeah.
And like, it's really hard for me to go without saying, like, it breaks my heart that is the most feasible option for so many in our community. I want them I want them to be housed in
Yeah.
safe, stable shelter. And so
Ideally.
that's really my North Star, and that's where my focus is. And it's, we need oh, I'm so sorry, my asthma is crazy right now, y'all, sorry. But we need local leaders who are in it for the long haul, which I am, who are going to put in the strenuous and complicated work of that long-term solution. And I would be so excited to start that path. And I also recognize in the meantime, or concurrently, we have a crisis now, and we need support and stabilization and mitigation now. And those things can run congruently. And so getting more to your actual question, I think of a few things there. First, there are people in our community, and I think of the faith-based community right now, especially, who have opened up their space and have done the work to have those conversations with the surrounding community about why we need to step up and provide safe space for people to park. And that's beautiful. That's like really beautiful. And I think the city can be supplementing and scaffolding those spaces and providing some extra infrastructure, whether it's hygienic or some management or some navigation services. Again, everything that we do has to be about the bigger picture of, yes, it's really important to stabilize and be compassionate now, and how are we constantly moving the locus of energy and drive to how do we get you long-term housing? What do you need? And so I can see the city kind of playing a bigger role in normalizing this and legitimizing it. The city does have a lot of legitimizing power, for lack of a clearer term. And so I would be throwing the weight of my slice of the dais on those types of programs. And then the second thing that comes up around that for me, that you I don't know if you explicitly pointed out, but what I was kind of thinking of was mass policing and how we have been allocating that method of creating uneven safety in ways that it's not just that it doesn't solve homelessness, it actually perpetuates it and creates it and deepens it. And so, and when I'm talking to folks, I'm on the Juvenile Justice Commission. I've been working in criminal justice reform for the better part of a decade. I work with people inside the system. I work both, people that are employed or people that are like literally incarcerated. And I've in that work, I've heard a lot of different perspectives, and what you'll hear is you literally can just remove those scenarios, those situations off of the plate of responsibility of law enforcement, and it will increase the well-being of people experiencing homelessness, and it will decrease the prevalence, or at least the impact that mass policing has on the creation of homelessness. And that is literally just pulling back on citing people who are not gonna, they're homeless. They're literally cannot pay for shelter. How are they going to pay the citation? And so and even law enforcement, I mean, they've been really clear for a long time. They're like, we're not gonna solve this. And I think they're frustrated. I mean, I don't want to speak for them, but I hear frustration, from them. And so the second part of that is not just pulling back and recalibrating, like what recalibrating around the truth that mass policing is not a solution to social issues,
Right.
the like of which of home, it's not a solution. It hasn't worked. I mean,
it doesn't work.
It just doesn't. I mean, we can get into some of the morals the philosophy, but the data is just also so compelling. And so
one of the saddest things that I have heard and witnessed heard and witnessed is that at some points it feels safer for some individuals to be incarcerated because there's shelter, and that is so heartbreaking to me. And the fight against recidivism and homelessness to me is like really intrinsically linked. And I think that that's what you're getting at is that if the needs of a community are being met, then there's no reason for the mass policing that's happening.
Right.
Yeah.
That's it. And that's the dovetail is that recalibration, but also there are instances where people are calling 911 for over a situation that could very well have safety implications, or needs are not being met, and they need to be met. And I believe the local government in many cases has a responsibility to be making sure that our public resources, people's tax dollars, are used to then provide the public services that they're requesting.
Yeah.
And so, for me, I think of Cahoots. I was on a panel with
Yeah.
a member of Cahoots who, it was just incredible. He was just talking about all of the calls. It was like a really small team, a little over $1 million. They were taking like a third of the 911 calls from a very similar sized city. And they were connecting people to services. They were getting on the scene. They were de-escalating. They were addressing that, perhaps that there was conflict or some kind of tension within the situation, but were actually able to de-escalate it because they were unarmed, because they didn't have power to incarcerate or cite. It's actually because of that, they say, that they're able to meet these needs. And also they've never had an instance of anyone being hurt. Right, from that, because it is actually, it's a de-escalation tactic.
And if you think about just, trauma 101, if you've ever had a traumatic experience with a law enforcement, like a lot of the folks that I work with have had experiences in which they weren't treated fairly, or they were there was excessive force used, or there were situations, then the presence of an officer might really trigger, escalate a mental health crisis
right
happening. Whereas a community member, a Cahoots member, or team member on a Cahoots.
That's it. Cahoots.
Yeah, because we deal with, even at the farm, situations that could escalate and could really become tense situations, and just really allow the space for folks to work the energy off and work. And there are different ways to protect communities. And I'm a really strong advocate for meeting mental health needs, not with law enforcement in any way. Like, there's so many solutions there that I'm really excited about. So yeah. I could tell we could talk for a really long time, and I hope we get to at some point. Ella and I, we have like a few parties that we see each other at a year, I think, and I don't know if it'll happen this year, but this coffee with Kayla is such a cool substitute. Thank you so much, honestly, and thank you for your work. And for anyone else who's out there that has more questions about this topic or more, you can always learn more about where I'm coming from and the lessons I've learned from community members directly at my website, www.kumarforcouncil.com. You can also message me through that site. So honestly, I'd love to hear from folks and continue learning. And Ella, thank you again. Thank you so much, Kayla. Woohoo!